Hello everyone. Welcome back to Naruto Fix. Today we have another interesting What If Naruto story, which is what if Naruto was reborn with Hashirama's memories. Part 1. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Now, without wasting any time, let's begin. The night Naruto Uzumaki was born, the village of Konoha believed that the greatest danger in its history had been sealed inside a newborn child. They were wrong. Because something else had been born that night too. Not a monster, not a demon, a memory. Far beneath the unconscious mind of the newborn Naruto, something ancient stirred. Memories that did not belong to a child began to awaken one after another, memories of enormous forests rising from the earth. Memories of battles that had shaken entire nations, memories of a man who had once stood at the center of the shinobi world. A man named Hashirama Senju. Naruto's tiny fingers moved. For a moment, the crying stopped. Inside his mind, a little boy stood alone in an endless darkness. He looked around in confusion. "Where am I?" A deep voice answered from somewhere beyond the darkness. "You are inside your own mind." Naruto turned. A tall man stood behind him. Long dark hair, a forehead protector, a calm face. A smile that somehow carried both warmth and sadness. Naruto stared at him. "Who are you?" The man crouched down. "My name is Hashirama." Quote. Naruto tilted his head. "Hashirama Senju." The boy frowned. "I don't know you." Hashirama smiled. "That's because these aren't your memories." Suddenly the darkness shattered. Naruto saw a battlefield. Thousands of shinobi were fighting. Blood covered the ground. Wood erupted from the earth like mountains. A young Hashirama stood at the center of it all. Then Naruto saw another boy. Madara Uchiha. The two stood opposite each other, yet the look in their eyes was not hatred. It was friendship. Then the vision changed. A village appeared. Konoha. Naruto saw its construction. He saw the first Hokage. He saw the 5 great nations being formed. He saw the first great ninja war. He saw people he had never met. He saw battles he had never fought. He saw Hashirama laugh. He saw Hashirama cry. He saw Hashirama lose people. He saw Hashirama sit alone beneath a tree, wondering whether the dream of peace had been nothing more than a childish fantasy. Naruto suddenly grabbed his head. "Stop." The memories stopped. Hashirama looked at him quietly. "I know it's overwhelming. Why are you showing me this? Because one day, you will need to remember." "Remember what?" Hashirama's expression became serious. "How this world works." Naruto stared at him. "Why?" "Because you were born into a world that I failed to change." The little boy didn't understand. Hashirama continued. "I believed that if children stopped fighting, the world would become peaceful. I believed that if villages united, hatred would disappear." He looked toward the darkness. "But hatred doesn't disappear simply because you build walls." Quote. Naruto remained silent. Hashirama placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your generation will face problems greater than mine." "What kind?" "People who will seek power. People who will seek revenge. People who will manipulate entire nations from the shadows." Quote. Hashirama paused. "And people who will try to use you." Naruto's eyes widened. "Me? You? Why?" Hashirama smiled sadly. "Because you are carrying something dangerous." Naruto suddenly heard a gigantic roar. The darkness shook. A massive red eye appeared behind Hashirama. Naruto screamed. "What is that?" Hashirama turned toward the enormous presence. "The 9-tailed fox." Naruto stepped backward. Hashirama looked at him. "Don't fear it. But it's terrifying. Power is terrifying when you don't understand it." The giant eye disappeared. Hashirama knelt before Naruto. "One day, you'll understand. Will you stay with me?" Quote. Hashirama smiled. "I don't know." "Why?" "Because these memories are not meant to become your life." Hashirama touched Naruto's forehead. "They are meant to become your foundation." The world went black. Naruto opened his eyes. He was crying. Kushina Uzumaki, exhausted and barely conscious, looked toward her newborn son. "Naruto." She smiled weakly. Minato stood beside her. "He's strong." Kushina laughed softly. "Of course he is. Neither of them noticed the strange green chakra that briefly surrounded Naruto's tiny body. Neither of them saw the roots beneath the floor twitch. Neither of them understood what had happened. Naruto had inherited something that no one had ever possessed before. The memories of Hashirama Senju. Not his chakra, not his body, not his soul, his memories. And those memories would change everything. Years passed. Naruto was 3 years old when the memories became clearer. At first, they came randomly. He would look at a tree and suddenly understand how to manipulate chakra through roots. He would hear someone discussing the Uchiha clan and remember Madara. He would see the Hokage monument and feel a strange sadness toward faces he had never met. Sometimes he dreamed of Hashirama. Sometimes he dreamed of Madara. Sometimes he woke up knowing things he had never learned. The most frightening part was that Naruto slowly realized something. Hashirama's memories were not merely images. They contained knowledge, experience, battle instincts, understanding of chakra, understanding of politics, understanding of people. Naruto didn't suddenly become a genius. He was still a child. But whenever he encountered something connected to Hashirama's life, his mind reacted. One afternoon, Naruto sat alone beneath a tree. Several children were playing nearby. They looked at him. Then they whispered, "That's the demon kid." Naruto lowered his head. He had already learned that people hated him. He didn't understand why. He only knew that adults avoided him. Shopkeepers refused to serve him. Other children weren't allowed to play with him. He had no family, no friends, no one. Naruto looked at the tree beside him. A memory surfaced. Hashirama sitting beneath a tree with Madara. 2 boys laughing. 2 boys dreaming about a village where children wouldn't have to die on battlefields. Naruto smiled faintly. Madara. The name escaped his lips. Then he stopped. Why had he said that? He didn't know. But somewhere inside him, Hashirama's memories whispered. A village. A dream. A promise. Naruto clenched his tiny fists. If you could dream about peace. He looked toward Konoha. Then maybe I can too. Quote. That night, Naruto made his first decision. He would become Hokage. But unlike the Naruto of the original timeline, this dream didn't come from wanting recognition alone. It came from Hashirama. He wanted to understand why Hashirama's dream had failed. And he wanted to succeed where the first Hokage couldn't. At age 4, Naruto began experimenting. He sat beneath trees and tried to push chakra into the ground. Nothing happened. He tried again. Nothing. Again. Nothing. He became frustrated. Damn it. He slammed his hand into the soil. A tiny green sprout appeared. Naruto froze. He stared at it. Then his eyes widened. I did it. The sprout disappeared almost immediately. Naruto didn't care. He had seen it. He knew it was real. But he also understood something. This wasn't normal chakra control. This was something special. Something that belonged to Hashirama. Naruto began practicing secretly. He didn't tell anyone. Every day, he tried to produce plants. Most attempts failed. Some produced tiny roots. Once, he managed to grow a small flower. Naruto stared at it for nearly an hour. He smiled. Maybe I really can do this. But the memories had another lesson. Power without control was dangerous. So Naruto began learning chakra control before anything else. He climbed trees. He walked across water. He practiced throwing stones. He studied the way chakra moved through his body. He didn't know the official names for everything. But Hashirama's memories gave him an instinctive understanding of the fundamentals. By the time Naruto entered the academy, he was already far more disciplined than anyone realized. But he still acted like Naruto. Loud, energetic, annoying. He failed the clone technique repeatedly. His classmates laughed. Iruka scolded him. Naruto scratched his head. Why can't I make a normal clone? Inside his mind, Hashirama laughed. Because you have an enormous chakra reserve. Naruto frowned. You could have told me that earlier. Quote. I did. When? Several times. Naruto crossed his arms. You talk too much. Hashirama laughed. For the first time, Naruto had someone he could talk to. a memory, a voice, a teacher. But there was one thing Hashirama never told him. The full truth about the 9 tails. Naruto knew the beast existed. He knew it had been sealed inside him. But he didn't know that its chakra was constantly interfering with his chakra control. Still, he adapted. He created his own method. Instead of trying to suppress his enormous chakra, he learned to circulate it in smaller amounts. It was slow, painful, but it worked. By the time Naruto was 7, his chakra control was already excellent. His physical strength was also unusual. He could carry weights that other children struggled with. Hashirama's memories had taught him how to use his body efficiently. He wasn't strong because he was blindly powerful. He was strong because he understood leverage, balance, momentum, chakra reinforcement. But Naruto kept everything hidden. Because Hashirama had taught him one important rule. Never reveal your true strength unless you understand your opponent. Naruto didn't know why he felt that rule was important. But he trusted it. Then came the day everything changed. Naruto was 8 years old when he first encountered the Uchiha clan directly. He was walking through the village carrying groceries when he saw a young boy standing near a training field. Black hair, dark eyes, cold expression. Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto stopped. The moment he saw Sasuke, Hashirama's memories exploded. Madara, the Uchiha clan, the Sharingan, war, friendship, betrayal. Naruto suddenly felt something he couldn't explain. He looked at Sasuke. Sasuke looked back. What? Naruto blinked. Nothing. Sasuke frowned. Then why are you staring? Naruto smiled. You look familiar. Sasuke's expression hardened. I don't know you. Quote. Naruto shrugged. Not yet. Sasuke walked away. Naruto watched him. Hashirama's voice whispered inside his mind. Be careful. Naruto frowned. Why? Because that boy is carrying a great deal of pain. Quote. Naruto looked at Sasuke's back. Can I help him? Hashirama was silent. Finally, he answered. Maybe. But, don't try to save everyone. Naruto smiled. That's exactly what someone like you would say. Quote. Hashirama laughed. You are becoming troublesome. That's what everyone says. For the first time, Naruto realized something. Hashirama wasn't simply teaching him how to fight. He was teaching him how to live. Years passed. At age 10, Naruto's abilities had developed dramatically. He could perform basic fire, wind, earth and water transformations. He had also discovered that wood release wasn't something he could freely use. The memories helped him understand the principle. But memory wasn't blood. Naruto didn't possess Hashirama's exact genetic abilities. Yet something strange happened whenever Naruto used multiple nature transformations together. His chakra changed. One night, while experimenting in the forest, Naruto created a small wooden branch. He stared at it. Again. He tried. Nothing. Again. Nothing. Naruto frowned. Why? Hashirama answered. Because you're forcing it. Naruto closed his eyes. Then what should I do? Stop trying to become me. Naruto opened his eyes. What? Hashirama smiled. You inherited my memories, Naruto. You did not inherit my destiny. Quote. Naruto became silent. Then how do I use wood release? You don't. Naruto stared at him. What? Not yet. Hashirama's expression became serious. You need to create your own path first. Naruto looked down at his hands. That night, he understood something important. He wasn't Hashirama. He was Naruto. And if he wanted to change the future, he couldn't simply repeat Hashirama's life. He had to surpass it. At 12, Naruto entered the academy. The classroom was filled with familiar faces. Sakura Haruno, Sasuke Uchiha, Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, Ino Yamanaka. Naruto looked around. For the first time, he felt something strange. These children weren't just classmates. They were the people who would shape his future. Hashirama's memories showed him how quickly childhood ended in the shinobi world. Naruto decided he wouldn't let that happen so easily. The academy instructor entered. Everyone, Today we'll begin practical combat training. Naruto smiled. Sasuke looked toward him. You're smiling. Naruto shrugged. I like training. Sasuke smirked. Then fight me. Quote. The room became silent. Naruto looked at Sasuke. Hashirama's voice appeared immediately. Don't underestimate him. Naruto smiled. I wasn't planning to. They stepped outside. The other students gathered around. Iruka watched them carefully. First one to touch the other's shoulder wins. Sasuke took his stance. Naruto stood casually. Ready. Yes. Begin. Sasuke vanished forward. Naruto's eyes widened. Fast. Much faster than most academy students. Sasuke threw a punch. Naruto leaned backward. The punch passed inches from his face. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's wrist. Sasuke twisted. Naruto released him. Sasuke spun and kicked. Naruto blocked. The impact pushed him backward. The students gasped. Sasuke landed. Naruto smiled. You're good. Sasuke frowned. You're holding back. Naruto's smile disappeared. Sasuke had noticed. Naruto suddenly became serious. Hashirama's voice whispered. Now. Naruto moved. 1 step. 2. Sasuke barely reacted. Naruto appeared beside him. He touched Sasuke's shoulder. The class erupted. Sasuke stared at Naruto. What was that? Quote. Naruto smiled. Training. Sasuke clenched his fists. I'll beat you next time. Naruto nodded. I'll be waiting. From that day forward, something changed. Sasuke had found his first rival. Naruto had found his first true friend. Neither of them knew how important that relationship would become. But Naruto knew one thing. The original history was already changing. Because he remembered what happened to Sasuke. He remembered what happened to the Uchiha. He remembered Itachi. He remembered the massacre. And he knew that one day, the entire clan would stand on the edge of disaster. Naruto wasn't going to wait until then. He began investigating. Not openly. Quietly. He watched the Uchiha. He watched the village elders. He watched Danzo. And the first time Naruto saw Danzo Shimura, Hashirama's memories became unusually dark. Naruto stopped walking. Across the street, an elderly man stood surrounded by root shinobi. Danzo glanced at him. Their eyes met. Naruto felt a chill. Hashirama's voice was no longer warm. That man is dangerous. Naruto whispered. How dangerous? Enough to destroy everything I built. Naruto stared at Danzo. Then I'll stop him. Hashirama didn't answer. Because for the first time, Naruto understood something. His new life wasn't going to be a simple story about becoming Hokage. He had been given memories from the past for a reason. He had been born into a future where the consequences of Hashirama's decisions still existed. The Uchiha were still suffering. The villages still hated one another. The tailed beasts were still weapons. The Akatsuki would eventually rise. Madara's plan was still waiting. And somewhere in the darkness, a man named Obito Uchiha was still destined to become the masked man who would drag the world toward war. Naruto clenched his fists. I know what's coming. Hashirama appeared beside him. You know fragments. Naruto looked at him. That's enough. No. Hashirama shook his head. It's not. Naruto frowned. Why? Because knowing the future doesn't mean you understand it. Naruto remained silent. Hashirama looked toward Konoha. You have my memories. Then he looked directly at Naruto. But you must make your own decisions. Quote. Naruto nodded. I understand. Suddenly, Naruto felt a strange chakra behind him. He turned. Nothing. But Hashirama's expression changed. Someone is watching you. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Who? I don't know. Quote. Naruto scanned the rooftops. Nothing. Then a black shadow disappeared behind a building. Naruto's heart began beating faster. This wasn't part of Hashirama's memories. This was something new. Something he couldn't predict. Someone else had noticed that Naruto was different. And whoever that person was. They had been watching him for years. Naruto looked at the empty rooftop. Who are you? No answer came. But far away, hidden within the darkness, a masked figure stood silently. One eye stared toward Naruto. The figure whispered, So, The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki remembers. The masked man smiled. Interesting. Back in Konoha, Naruto's expression became serious. Hashirama stood beside him. Naruto. Yes, your real story begins now. Naruto looked toward the Hokage monument. The setting sun illuminated the stone faces. Hashirama's face was there. Naruto smiled. I'll change everything. Hashirama smiled back. Then show me what my memories are truly worth. And for the first time in history, the boy who carried the nine tails inside him didn't dream merely of becoming Hokage. He dreamed of ending the cycle of hatred itself. But he had no idea that his first enemy would not be Madara. It would not be Orochimaru. It would not be Akatsuki. It would be the very village he wanted to protect. Because the moment Naruto began changing history. History began fighting back. Writing. The next morning, Naruto woke before sunrise. For several seconds, he simply stared at the ceiling of his small apartment. The strange encounter from the previous night continued to replay inside his mind. Someone had been watching him. Someone who knew something about him. Someone who had said words that should have been impossible. So, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki remembers. Naruto sat up. His eyes narrowed. Who was that? Hashirama appeared in the corner of Naruto's mind. I don't know. Naruto looked at him. You don't know. Hashirama shook his head. That person isn't part of my memories. Naruto became silent. That answer frightened him more than anything else. Hashirama's memories had always been his greatest advantage. Whenever Naruto encountered something related to the past, he could rely on them. But this enemy belonged to the future. A future that Naruto himself had not yet lived. That meant his memories could no longer tell him everything. He had to become stronger. Not stronger like Hashirama, stronger than the version of himself that had existed in the original timeline. Naruto got out of bed. Today, I'm starting for real. Hashirama smiled. Starting what? My training. You've been training for years. That wasn't serious. Hashirama laughed. Then what is serious? Quote. Naruto's eyes sharpened. I want to master every part of my chakra. Hashirama's smile disappeared. That's ambitious. I have your memories. You do. I have Kurama. Hashirama raised an eyebrow. You haven't even spoken to him. Naruto paused. That's true. Hashirama smiled. And you have no idea how to properly combine your chakra with his. Naruto grinned. Then I'll learn. Hashirama stared at him for several seconds. Then he nodded. Good. Naruto left his apartment. The village was still quiet. He went directly toward the forest. He didn't train near the academy anymore. He needed privacy. Once he reached a secluded clearing, Naruto sat beneath a tree. He closed his eyes. Okay. He slowed his breathing. His chakra began circulating. Normally, Naruto's chakra felt enormous. But now he divided it into smaller portions. One portion moved through his arms. Another through his legs. Another remained near his stomach. Then he began combining nature transformations. Wind, water, earth. The chakra inside his body became unstable. Naruto gritted his teeth. Come on. Quote. The ground beneath him cracked. His chakra exploded outward. Naruto jumped backward. The entire clearing shook. Trees bent. Leaves flew through the air. Naruto landed hard. Damn. Hashirama appeared. You're trying to force wood release. I know. Then stop. I can do it. Not yet. Naruto looked at him angrily. Why not? Hashirama's expression became serious. Because you're trying to reproduce my result without understanding my process. Quote. Naruto remained silent. Hashirama walked toward the tree. When I used wood release, I wasn't simply combining water and earth. He touched the tree. Wood release was connected to my chakra itself. Naruto listened carefully. It was an expression of life. Hashirama looked back. You cannot command life by force. Naruto frowned. Then how? You need to understand it. Naruto looked around the forest. The wind moved through the leaves. Birds flew overhead. Roots extended beneath the soil. Water flowed underground. Naruto slowly closed his eyes. For the first time, He stopped trying to create wood. Instead, he tried to feel the life around him. At first, there was nothing. Then, something changed. He could sense tiny movements beneath the earth. Roots, insects, water, seeds. Naruto opened his eyes. The ground beneath his hand moved. A small root emerged, then another. Naruto stared at them. Hashirama smiled. Now you're beginning to understand. Naruto placed his other hand on the ground. More roots appeared. They weren't large. They weren't powerful. But they were alive. Naruto smiled. I did it. Hashirama nodded. Your first step. Naruto looked at the tiny roots. How long until I can use your wood release? Hashirama laughed. You always ask about the destination. Because I want to get there. Then learn to enjoy the road. Naruto sighed. You're really annoying. I was called the god of shinobi. That doesn't make you less annoying. Hashirama laughed. Naruto continued training. For weeks. Every morning before the academy. Every afternoon afterward. Every night before sleeping. His control improved rapidly. But something else began changing too. Naruto became more observant. He stopped blindly trusting people. He listened more. Watched more. He began noticing the subtle divisions within Konoha. The Uchiha were isolated. The Hyuga were divided between branches. The civilian population feared Jinchuriki. The elders controlled decisions from the shadows. The Anbu watched everything. And Root watched everyone. Naruto understood why Hashirama had warned him. The village wasn't evil, but it wasn't perfect either. And Naruto had learned from Hashirama's memories that the greatest disasters often came from good intentions. One afternoon, Naruto noticed Sasuke sitting alone. Again, the boy had become quieter over the years. Naruto approached. You okay? Sasuke didn't look at him. I'm fine. You don't look fine. I said I'm fine. Quote. Naruto sat beside him. Sasuke glanced at him. Why do you keep doing that? Doing what? Sitting here. Naruto shrugged. Because you're alone. I like being alone. Naruto smiled. I don't believe you. Quote. Sasuke frowned. You don't know me. Maybe. Naruto stood. But I know what it looks like when someone is pretending. Sasuke stared at him. Naruto walked away. Behind him, Sasuke clenched his fists. He didn't understand why Naruto's words bothered him. But they did. That night, Naruto received another vision. He saw the Uchiha compound. Smoke, fire, bodies, Sasuke screaming, Itachi standing in the darkness. Naruto woke up gasping. No. Hashirama appeared. You saw it. Naruto looked at him. The massacre. Hashirama nodded. How long? I don't know. Can we stop it? Hashirama didn't answer immediately. Maybe. Naruto clenched his fists. I need to know everything. Knowing everything may not save them. Then what will? Understanding why it happens. Naruto stared at him. Hashirama continued. The Uchiha don't simply die because someone decides to kill them. Quote. They die because hatred has been growing between them and the village for years. Naruto remembered everything. The distrust. The police force. The Nine Tails attack. The suspicion placed on the Uchiha. The coup. Danzo. Itachi. Naruto whispered. So I have to change the situation before the coup. Exactly. Naruto stood. Then I'll do it. Hashirama looked at him. How? Naruto thought. He needed influence. But he was still a child. No one would listen to him. He couldn't accuse Danzo. He couldn't expose future events. He couldn't simply walk into the Hokage's office and say he remembered another life. So Naruto decided to start small. Sasuke. If he could become Sasuke's closest friend, perhaps he could change the future from inside the Uchiha clan. But there was another problem. Itachi. Naruto knew Itachi would eventually be forced into an impossible choice. He needed to reach him before that happened. Years before the massacre. Years before the war. Naruto needed to change the heart of the village. The first person he needed to understand was Itachi Uchiha. Several months later, Naruto finally encountered him. Itachi was older, calm, quiet. His eyes seemed far too mature for his age. Naruto recognized that expression immediately. It was the expression of someone carrying responsibility far beyond their years. Naruto walked toward him. "You're Itachi, right?" Itachi looked at him. "Yes. Can I ask you something?" Itachi nodded. "Why do you look sad?" Itachi's eyes narrowed slightly. Naruto continued. "You always look like you're thinking about something." Quote. Itachi smiled faintly. "You're observant." "I've been practicing." Itachi studied Naruto. "You're Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto blinked. "You know me. Everyone knows you." Naruto looked down. "Right." Itachi noticed the change in his expression. "You don't like that." Naruto shrugged. "People know me for the wrong reasons." Itachi remained silent. Naruto looked directly into his eyes. "You care about the village, don't you?" Itachi's expression changed. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you look like someone who would sacrifice himself for it." Itachi froze. For a fraction of a second, something appeared in his eyes. Fear. Naruto noticed. Itachi recovered immediately. "You're strange." Naruto smiled. "So I've been told." Itachi walked away. But before leaving, he said something. "Don't try to carry burdens that aren't yours." Naruto watched him disappear. Hashirama appeared. "You found him." Naruto nodded. "He already looks tired." Hashirama sighed. "He will carry a terrible burden." Naruto's fists tightened. "Not this time." Several months later, Naruto began spending more time with Sasuke. They trained together. They competed. They argued. They ate together. Sometimes Sakura joined them. Sometimes Naruto deliberately irritated Sasuke until the Uchiha lost his temper. Their rivalry became famous at the academy. But something unexpected happened. Sasuke started smiling more. Not often, but enough. One evening, Sasuke invited Naruto to his home. Naruto stopped outside the Uchiha compound. The moment he entered, Hashirama's memories flooded his mind. Madara, Uchiha children, the old clan compound, wars, blood. Naruto took a breath. Sasuke noticed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." They entered. Makoto Uchiha greeted them warmly. "So you're Naruto." Naruto smiled politely. "Yes." Makoto smiled. "Sasuke talks about you." Sasuke immediately became embarrassed. "I don't." Naruto grinned. "You do." "I don't." Makoto laughed. It was a peaceful evening. For the first time, Naruto saw Sasuke's family. His father, Fugaku. His mother, Makoto. Itachi. The atmosphere felt normal, happy. Naruto felt a strange ache in his chest. He knew what was coming. He looked at Itachi. Itachi noticed. "What?" Naruto hesitated. "Nothing." Itachi looked at him carefully. "You've been staring at me." Naruto smiled. "I'm trying to understand you." Itachi raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because you're important." Itachi went silent. Naruto didn't know why he had said it. But he meant it. Later that night, while walking home, Naruto made another decision. He would save Itachi. He would save Sasuke. He would save the Uchiha. But there was one person who stood between him and that future. Danzo. Naruto began researching him. Not through books. Through observation. He watched the Anbu. He watched the elders. He noticed root operatives. He learned their movements. And eventually, he discovered something disturbing. There was a secret entrance beneath one of Konoha's buildings. Naruto followed a root shinobi one night. He moved silently. The shinobi entered a hidden passage. Naruto followed. Deep underground, he saw dozens of masked shinobi. Weapons, scrolls, sealed rooms, and finally, Danzo. Naruto hid behind a pillar. Danzo stood before a large map of Konoha. One of the root members spoke. "The Uchiha situation is worsening." Danzo's expression remained cold. "Then prepare." Naruto's heart stopped. "Prepare for what?" The shinobi continued. "If the coup begins, we will eliminate the clan." Naruto clenched his fists. Hashirama appeared beside him. "Now you understand." Quote. Naruto's eyes burned with anger. He wanted to attack. He wanted to expose them. But Hashirama stopped him. "Not yet." "Why?" "Because you don't have proof." Naruto looked at Danzo. "I can defeat him." "That isn't the point." Hashirama's voice became firm. If you attack now, the village will label you a threat. Naruto gritted his teeth. Then what do I do? Build allies. Naruto looked at the root shinobi. Who? The Hokage. Naruto froze. Hiruzen Sarutobi. The third Hokage. Naruto had never trusted him completely. But Hashirama's memories contained something important. Hiruzen had once been a student of Tobirama. He had inherited the will of fire. He genuinely cared about Konoha. His weakness wasn't hatred, it was hesitation. Naruto needed to make him act. The next morning, Naruto went directly to the Hokage tower. The guards stopped him. Why are you here? I need to see the Hokage. You can't. Naruto sighed. I really need to. No. Naruto looked toward the building. Then he smiled. Fine. He turned around. The guards relaxed. Then Naruto suddenly ran. Hey! He jumped over the gate. Naruto. He sprinted through the hallway. Anbu appeared. Naruto slid beneath one. Another reached for him. Naruto ducked. Finally, he kicked open the Hokage's office door. Hiruzen looked up from his desk. Naruto stood there breathing heavily. Old man. Hiruzen sighed. Naruto. Can we talk? Hiruzen put down his pipe. What about? Naruto closed the door. Then his expression became completely serious. The Uchiha. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed. Naruto continued. They're going to rebel. Silence. Hiruzen stared at him. Who told you? No one. Then how do you know? Naruto looked directly into the Hokage's eyes. Because I know what happens when people stop talking to each other. Hiruzen remained silent. Naruto stepped closer. If the village keeps treating the Uchiha like enemies, one day they'll become enemies. Quote. Hiruzen's expression changed. Naruto. And when that happens, someone will decide that killing them is easier than understanding them. The room became cold. Hiruzen stared at the boy. Where did you learn to speak like this? Quote. Naruto hesitated. Then he answered honestly. I don't know. Hiruzen studied him carefully. For the first time, the third Hokage wondered whether Naruto Uzumaki was hiding something. Something enormous. Naruto turned toward the door. Before leaving, he said one final thing. Don't let Konoha become a village that protects its peace by destroying its own people. Hiruzen froze. Those words sounded strangely familiar. They reminded him of someone. Someone from long ago. Hashirama Senju. Naruto left. Hiruzen remained alone. He looked toward the Hokage monument. Hashirama. Far beneath Konoha, Danzo received a report. Naruto Uzumaki has been asking questions. Danzo's expression darkened. About what? The Uchiha. Danzo became silent. Then he smiled. Interesting. The masked man appeared behind him. Danzo looked at him. You know something about the boy. The masked man said nothing. Danzo continued. He's different. The masked man finally spoke. Very. How? The masked man looked toward Konoha. He remembers. Danzo's eyes narrowed. Remembers what? The masked man smiled beneath the mask. Everything. Meanwhile, Naruto stood alone on a rooftop. The moon illuminated Konoha. Hashirama stood beside him. You have taken your first step. Quote. Naruto looked at the village. It isn't enough. No. I need more power. Yes. More allies. Yes. More knowledge. Hashirama smiled. Now you're thinking like a Hokage. Naruto looked at his hands. Hashirama. Yes. If I really want to change everything. He looked toward the forest. Then I need to master the power you left behind. Hashirama's smile faded. You mean wood release? Naruto nodded. And something else. Hashirama stared at him. The nine tails. A deep growl suddenly echoed inside Naruto's mind. The air seemed to become heavy. Naruto's eyes widened. For the first time, the massive presence inside him responded directly. A gigantic voice emerged from the darkness. So, Naruto turned. Two enormous red eyes opened. You finally want to speak to me. Naruto stood frozen. Hashirama looked toward the beast. Kurama. The nine tails snarled. Don't call me by that name so casually, Hashirama. Naruto stepped forward. You know him. Kurama laughed. Know him. The fox's massive head emerged from the darkness. I remember him. Naruto's heartbeat accelerated. Kurama stared directly at him. You carry his memories. Naruto's eyes widened. How do you know? Kurama's smile became sinister. Because I remember the man who once controlled me. Hashirama became silent. Naruto looked between them. Then Kurama spoke the words that changed everything. But what you don't know, Naruto. His 9 tails moved slowly behind him. Is that I remember the truth about Hashirama that even he never told you. Quote. Naruto's expression changed. Hashirama looked away. Naruto stared at him. What truth? Hashirama remained silent. Naruto's voice became sharper. What didn't you tell me? Kurama laughed. Ask him. Naruto turned toward Hashirama. For the first time since receiving the memories, Naruto saw something he had never seen before. Fear. Hashirama was afraid. And Naruto suddenly realized. The memories he had inherited were incomplete. Someone had hidden something from him. Something about Hashirama. Something about Kurama. Something about Madara. And perhaps, something about Naruto himself. The 9 tails slowly opened its enormous mouth. Your journey has only just begun, little shinobi. Naruto clenched his fists. Then tell me the truth. Kurama smiled. First, his chakra began pouring through the darkness. Survive it. Writing. The darkness inside Naruto's mind became completely silent. Naruto stood before the enormous cage. Behind the bars, Kurama's 9 tails moved slowly through the darkness. His enormous red eyes remained fixed on Naruto. But Naruto wasn't looking at the 9 tails anymore. He was looking at Hashirama. The first Hokage stood several meters away, his expression unusually serious. Naruto had seen Hashirama angry. He had seen him sad. He had seen him laugh. But he had never seen him afraid. Hashirama. No answer. Naruto stepped forward. You said these memories were everything I needed to understand the past. Hashirama lowered his eyes. I said they would help you understand it. You didn't tell me everything. No. Why? Hashirama remained silent. Naruto's voice became harder. Why didn't you tell me? Kurama laughed from behind the cage. Because every hero has secrets. Naruto looked toward him. Stay out of this. Kurama's grin widened. You're beginning to sound like him. Naruto turned back toward Hashirama. What happened between you and Kurama? Quote. Hashirama finally looked at him. I controlled the tailed beasts. Naruto already knew that. That's not the truth I'm asking about. Hashirama sighed. You want to know why Kurama hates me? Naruto nodded. Yes. Hashirama looked toward the darkness. When I was alive, I believed that peace could be created through strength. Naruto frowned. That doesn't sound like you. It wasn't the belief I wanted to have. Quote. Hashirama's voice became quieter. But the world forced me to make choices. He looked at Kurama. I believed that the tailed beasts were too powerful to remain in the hands of individual villages. Naruto understood. So you captured them? Yes. And distributed them? Yes. Like weapons. Hashirama closed his eyes. Yes. Naruto's fists tightened. You said you wanted peace. I did. Then why did you turn living beings into weapons? Quote. Hashirama didn't answer. Kurama laughed bitterly. Exactly. Naruto looked at the 9 tails. Kurama's expression was no longer playful. Your precious first Hokage wanted peace so badly that he decided beings like me should be controlled. Quote. Naruto looked at Hashirama. Is that why you didn't tell me? Hashirama nodded. I didn't want my mistakes to become your beliefs. Naruto was silent. For years, he had thought of Hashirama as the perfect shinobi. The man who created Konoha. The man who defeated Madara. The man who dreamed of peace. But now Naruto understood something important. Hashirama had been human. He had made mistakes. He had chosen wrong paths. And Naruto had inherited those mistakes along with the memories. Kurama moved closer to the cage. You want to become Hokage? Naruto looked at him. Yes. Then remember this. Kurama's eyes narrowed. Don't become another Hashirama. Naruto looked at Hashirama. The first Hokage smiled faintly. He's right. Naruto's eyes widened. You agree? Hashirama nodded. I failed because I thought peace could be created by making everyone follow my dream. Quote. He looked directly at Naruto. Your job isn't to make the world follow your dream. Then what is it? Your job is to create a world where everyone can have their own dream without killing someone else's. Quote. Naruto remained silent. Those words stayed inside his mind. Then Kurama spoke again. If you truly want to change the world. His chakra began spreading through the darkness. Stop treating me as a weapon. Quote. Naruto walked toward the cage. He stopped directly in front of Kurama. I won't. Kurama stared at him. You won't what? I won't treat you like a weapon. The Nine Tails narrowed his eyes. Naruto continued. I don't know if I can trust you. Kurama laughed. Good. But I don't want to control you either. Kurama's smile slowly disappeared. Naruto placed his hand against the bars. If we're going to live together. Quote. He looked directly into Kurama's eyes. Then someday, I want us to understand each other. For several seconds, Kurama said nothing. Then he turned away. We'll see. Naruto smiled. That's enough for now. Quote. His consciousness began returning to reality. Before he disappeared, he heard Kurama's voice. Naruto. He stopped. What? Kurama looked over his shoulder. Don't trust the masked man. Naruto froze. What masked man? Kurama's expression became serious. The one watching you. Naruto's eyes widened. You know who he is. Kurama smiled. I know the chakra. Then everything vanished. Naruto opened his eyes. He was sitting beneath the tree in the forest. Sweat covered his face. His breathing was heavy. Morning sunlight had begun entering the forest. Naruto looked down at his hands. Kurama. He remembered everything. The conversation. The warning. The masked man. Naruto stood. So he really knows Kurama. Hashirama appeared. Yes. Naruto looked at him. Do you know who he is? Hashirama shook his head. No. Naruto frowned. Then we need to find out. Carefully. Naruto nodded. He returned to Konoha. But something had changed. For the first time, Naruto wasn't simply trying to prevent future disasters. He was trying to understand the present. He began observing the village more carefully. He noticed root shinobi. He noticed the tension between the Uchiha and the village. He noticed that certain people avoided him. And he noticed something else. Sasuke was becoming increasingly isolated. One afternoon, Naruto found him training alone. Kunai struck a target again and again. Sasuke's hands were shaking. Naruto watched silently. Sasuke threw another kunai. It missed. Again. He reached for another. Naruto stepped forward. You're going to injure yourself. Sasuke didn't turn. I don't care. Naruto frowned. That's stupid. Sasuke finally looked at him. You don't understand. Then explain. I need to become stronger. Why? Sasuke's expression changed. Because there's someone I need to surpass. Naruto already knew. Itachi. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. How do you know? Naruto hesitated. Then he smiled. You talk about him a lot. Sasuke looked away. He is strong. Yes. Too strong. Naruto sat beside him. What are you going to do when you become stronger than him? Quote. Sasuke's answer came immediately. I'll ask him how he became so strong. Naruto smiled. You could just ask him now. Sasuke shook his head. No. Why? Because I want him to recognize me. Naruto understood. Sasuke wasn't simply chasing strength. He was chasing acknowledgement. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. Then I'll help you. Sasuke looked at him. Why? Because you're my rival. Sasuke smiled faintly. Idiot. Naruto grinned. That's what friends are for. Sasuke looked away. But this time, he didn't argue. Several months passed. Naruto and Sasuke trained together almost every day. Sasuke improved rapidly. Naruto deliberately kept his strength close to Sasuke's level. He didn't want to crush his rival. He wanted to push him. Their training attracted attention. Kakashi Hatake occasionally watched them from a distance. He noticed something unusual. Naruto's movement wasn't that of an academy student. His footwork was too efficient. His balance was too perfect. His reactions were too fast. And sometimes, Kakashi could swear Naruto was using techniques he had never been taught. One day, Kakashi approached him. Naruto. Naruto turned. Yes. Who taught you how to move like that? Naruto smiled. Practice. Kakashi's visible eye narrowed. Only practice. Naruto nodded. Kakashi stared at him. Then he smiled. Interesting. He left. Naruto watched him go. Hashirama appeared. That man is very observant. I know. Be careful. Everyone keeps telling me that. Because you keep doing dangerous things. Quote. Naruto laughed. Then his expression became serious. We need to accelerate. Hashirama nodded. Why? Because the future is approaching. Naruto looked toward the Uchiha district. The massacre. Hashirama didn't answer. Naruto continued. I don't know exactly when it happens. Neither do I. Then I'll stop waiting. That evening, Naruto went to the Hokage Tower again. This time, he didn't break in. He walked directly into the office. Hiruzen looked up. Naruto, I need to ask you something. About the Uchiha. Hiruzen sighed. You've been persistent. They're suffering. I know. No, you don't. Hiruzen's expression hardened. Naruto continued. They feel like the village doesn't trust them. Hiruzen looked toward the window. Political tensions are complicated. Then simplify them. Hiruzen stared at Naruto. Naruto stepped closer. Talk to them. I have. Not enough. Hiruzen frowned. Naruto continued. If you want to prevent a war, don't wait until people pick up weapons. Hiruzen remained silent. Give them a reason to believe they belong here. Quote. Hiruzen looked at him carefully. Why are you so concerned about them? Naruto smiled. Because Sasuke is my friend. That answer surprised Hiruzen. Naruto turned toward the door. And because I don't want Konoha to lose good people. Quote. Hiruzen watched him leave. Later that night, Hiruzen summoned Itachi. The young Uchiha entered the office. Hokage-sama. Hiruzen looked at him. Sit. Itachi sat. Hiruzen spoke carefully. I've been thinking about the Uchiha. Quote. Itachi's expression changed. The clan. Yes. Hiruzen sighed. Things are becoming difficult. Itachi remained silent. Hiruzen looked directly at him. I want you to help me. Itachi lowered his eyes. How? Keep the peace. Itachi nodded. I will. But neither man realized that someone else was listening. Outside the office, hidden on the rooftop, Naruto stood silently. He hadn't intended to spy. But he had sensed Itachi's chakra and followed. He listened to the conversation. Then he heard Hiruzen say something that made his heart sink. The village cannot afford another war. Naruto knew what that meant. The tension was already reaching a dangerous level. Naruto returned home. That night, he couldn't sleep. Hashirama appeared. You heard them. Yes. What will you do? Naruto looked toward the window. I'm going to change the Uchiha's relationship with the village. How? Naruto smiled. By giving them something the village hasn't given them in years. What? Trust. The next day, Naruto went to the Uchiha compound. He was greeted by Sasuke. Why are you here? I want to meet your father. Sasuke stared. My father? Yes. Why? Because I want to ask him something. Sasuke hesitated. Then he led Naruto inside. Fugaku Uchiha sat in his study. He looked at Naruto. Why are you here? Naruto bowed slightly. I wanted to speak with you. Fugaku studied him. About what? The Uchiha. Fugaku's expression hardened. Why? Naruto answered honestly. Because I think the village is making a mistake. Fugaku remained silent. Naruto continued. You're angry. Of course. Because the village doesn't trust you. Fugaku's eyes narrowed. Who told you that? No one. Naruto looked directly at him. I can see it. Fugaku studied the boy. Then he asked, what do you think should happen? Naruto didn't hesitate. You should stop trying to prove that the village hates you. Quote. Fugaku's eyes widened slightly. Naruto continued. Make them need you. Silence. Build relationships with other clans. Fugaku remained still. Work with the Hokage. Naruto's voice became stronger. Don't isolate yourselves. Fugaku stared at him. You speak like a politician. Naruto smiled. I've been told I'm troublesome. Fugaku almost smiled. Almost. Then Naruto said something unexpected. Your clan doesn't need another war. Quote. Fugaku's expression changed. You think we're planning a war? I think some people are. Fugaku became silent. Naruto knew he had hit the truth. The village is afraid of the Uchiha. He stepped closer. And fear creates hatred. Fugaku looked down. Naruto continued. Don't give them a reason to fear you. Fugaku looked toward Sasuke. Then back at Naruto. You care about my son? Yes. Why? Because he's my friend. Quote. Fugaku studied Naruto for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. I'll consider what you said. Naruto smiled. That's all I wanted. As Naruto left, Fugaku remained seated. He looked toward the window. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to him without fear. Someone had spoken to him without political motives. A child, an outsider, and somehow, that child's words had reached him. But not everyone was pleased. Deep beneath Konoha, Danzo received another report. Naruto Uzumaki met with Fugaku Uchiha. Danzo's eye narrowed. He is interfering. Yes. Why? We don't know. Danzo stood. Find out. The root shinobi bowed. Danzo looked toward the darkness. Naruto Uzumaki. Quote. His voice became cold. You're becoming a problem. Meanwhile, Naruto walked through the village. He felt something strange. Someone was following him. He stopped. Nothing. He continued. A few seconds later, he turned sharply. Still nothing. Naruto smiled. You can come out. Silence. Then a figure appeared on the rooftop. Black cloak. Orange mask. One eye. Naruto froze. The masked man stared at him. So you've finally noticed. Quote. Naruto's hands moved toward his kunai pouch. Who are you? The masked man laughed. You really don't remember. Naruto's eyes narrowed. I've never met you. Not yet. Naruto's heart skipped. The masked man continued. That's the problem with changing the future. He stepped closer. You remember what should happen. Naruto's eyes widened. But I remember what happened before you changed it. Naruto's blood ran cold. You. The masked man tilted his head. You think Hashirama's memories make you special? Naruto didn't answer. They don't. The masked man's chakra began spreading. They make you predictable. Naruto vanished. He appeared behind the masked man and attacked. His fist passed through empty air. Naruto jumped backward. Space-time ninjutsu. The masked man laughed. Very good. Naruto stared. He knew that technique. He had seen it in his memories. Obito. But something was wrong. The masked man's chakra wasn't exactly the same. Naruto whispered. You're not Obito. The masked man froze. For the first time, the smile disappeared. Naruto's eyes sharpened. Who are you? The masked man stared at him. Then he laughed. Perhaps you really are different. Naruto prepared himself. The masked man raised one hand. Don't worry. His body began disappearing. We'll meet again. Naruto shouted. Wait. The masked man vanished. Naruto stood alone. Hashirama appeared. You recognized the technique. Yes. Was it Obito? Naruto shook his head. No. Hashirama looked troubled. Then who? Naruto stared at the empty rooftop. I don't know. He clenched his fists. But whoever he is. Naruto looked toward the Hokage monument. He knows about my memories. A cold wind passed through the village. Far away, in a hidden dimension, the masked man removed his mask. But beneath it was not Obito's face. Not Madara's. Not anyone Naruto remembered. A completely different man stared into the darkness. His eyes contained a strange pattern. He smiled. Hashirama's memories. He touched his eye. And Naruto's destiny. A second figure stood behind him. Should we kill him? The man shook his head. No. Why? Because Naruto Uzumaki is going to do something neither Hashirama nor Madara could accomplish. Quote. He smiled. He's going to unite the world. The second figure frowned. Then why not stop him now? The masked man looked toward the distant image of Naruto. Because. His smile widened. Quote dot dot dot. I want to see what happens when the boy realizes that the future he remembers was never the real future. To begin with, back in Konoha, Naruto suddenly